Okay, so bar one. We are in the key of C. You should maybe get up, if you don't have it handy, I would recommend when you're doing your analysis to have a chord map in the key that you're looking at handy so you can glance back and forth. Although the key of C might be in your mind already, I mean, this is the easiest key, which is one of the reasons I picked this piece. One point to remember is this is about the sonata form, and it'll be in that video I talked about. The sonata form has, it starts in one key, there are three parts: exposition, development, and recapitulation. So the exposition starts in one key. This is a piece in the key of C major, so it starts in the key of C major. And then during the exposition, which is up to the repeat sign at the end of page 2, it's going to change from the key it's in to the dominant key. What's the dominant key in the key of C? G. So it's going to modulate to the key of G major at some point during these 2 pages. Once it modulates to the key of G major, you need to have a new chord map in the key of G major, and that is where you will choose your Roman numerals from the new key. So when you're talking about all the accidentals that you're seeing on page 2, what you are seeing is F sharps to make it into the key of G major instead of C major. The way real music works is most of the time, at least this kind of music we're looking at here, the key modulations, changes to a new key, you don't get a new key signature marked in the music. You just change all the accidentals to be the key you want it to be. So if we're going from C major to G major, the difference in the key signatures is G major has an F sharp that C doesn't. So you're going to see all those F sharps written into the score when it changes into the key of G. So if you look at page 2, every F on that page should have a sharp next to it, or almost every F on that page. That means you're in the key of G.
There's also some D sharps.
Well, there could be other kinds of chromatic non-chord tones. Lots of ways that you can get accidentals, but the consistent one should be F sharp because that's the key you're going to. So some of them will be chromatic non-chord tones, but the F sharps are actually telling you they should be consistent and they should be showing you the key of G major. Now you have to choose where you change from C major to G major, so those accidentals can be a really helpful hint on that issue. These are good questions. I will also upload this video and put a link to it in that midterm file also. All right, so we are in the key of C, and we start out box number 1. Which hand do we start with when we look at a new chord? Left hand. So if we look over here, we have our left hand part. We have C, C, B, C, C. It's kind of an octave, it's just octave C's with a neighbor tone on the upper one. Does everyone see that? That B is not a chord tone. You should, when I say you're going to filter out the non-chord tones, you should be starting to see this kind of a thing right now. That neighbor tone looks like the shape of the neighbor tones that we were finding the other day in those 2 slideshows that we talked about on Monday. C, 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 those are the chord tones. We look up here and we verify our get. This, I'm guessing it's a C chord from the left hand. I look at the right hand and I see E, G, C. That is a C triad, all taken care of right on the first beat. So the rest of the box, we're going to look in here, and if we look at this passage, can we see C, E, and G as the chord tones in there and everything else as non-chord tones?
Yeah.
That's the question you want to ask. So we have C, the B and the D are kind of 2 neighbor tones to the C, and then you get back to C. So that B and the D are just decorating the C, putting motion but not really moving, not going anywhere. kind of like we did with the voice exchange on the board the other day. Then we have a leap up to a chord tone. We have another situation, here's E and here's E. The new two notes in between are the two neighbor tones. This technique is called cambiata, or changing tones. And it's kind of like an escape tone on the bottom, step leap, and then a leap step ending on the same chord tone, E. So the C, C, E, E, and then we have the beginning of the next pattern in G, outlining a C triad with those 16th notes. Again, you might not recognize all that pattern, all those patterns yet, because you haven't seen these yet, cambiata. We just talked about that new term. But if you looked at the left hand and you looked at the right hand to verify it, you should be clearly thinking this is C, E, G. Then when you look at this weird passage, you're looking in to see where the C, E, and G are and if it makes sense under those conditions. And it does. So this entire box would be a 1 chord right down here. And let's write that in. I need a pen. I'm going to need a red pen, actually. Any questions about box 1? We'll put a 1 chord right here at the beginning for box 1. Okay, box 2. We look at the left hand, it's an F. So what would you guess first? 4 chord. What function is a 4 chord? We're going to come back to your answer, Valerie. I just want to talk through the whole step. Predominant. So we look at the left hand, we make a prediction that this is an F chord. Then we look at the right hand to see if it's an F chord. And what do we find? Valerie? What chord is in the right hand? You got it.
Yeah, it's the bottom one's in A, and then you have D, F, A.
Right, D, F, A is what we see in the right hand. So we were expecting a 4 chord, which is predominant, and instead we found D, F, A, which is a 2 chord, which is also predominant. So what's the full Roman numeral you're going to put at the bottom of this box? 2, 6. Why 6? It's a 2 chord with the 3rd on the bottom. That's 2, 6. Roman numeral 2, lowercase, because it's minor, and 6 saying it's 3rd on the bottom, first inversion. Questions about box? That's not box 2, I'm sorry. The second box, which is the beginning of bar 2. All right, what comes after a 2 chord in your chord map? Almost always. Maybe always. 5. So before we even look at the next box, or before we try to figure out where the next box is, we should have in mind that we're looking for G, B, D, F. GBD or GBDF. Could be either one. So we look at the next music and we see it starts on a G and an F up here. These two notes, I can do this already. Yeah, I'll do it here. This is a G and an F. We come down. What's the note that we turn on down here at the bottom? A B. Turning notes are often chord tones, more often than not. So G and F, the D is in the chord. The B is a turning point that's in the chord. And then we have a leap followed by a step. Appoggiatura, yes, that's right. So a leap followed by a step, then that's the chord tone. D, F, B, D, all in the G, B, D, F chord. We look down here, there's a G and an F. This E is a neighbor tone, F, E, F. And then F and G are in the chord.
Where's the neighbor tone?
F, neighbor down to E, back to the chord tone F. So this would be a 5. You might call it 5-4-2. I would probably just call this one 5-7. That G feels like the bottom note, even if it technically isn't the lowest note in the box. I would count either one right. You could say 5-4-2, or I'm just going to call it 5-7. Any questions about that? Pretty easy, this part, I hope. All right, what comes after 5/7? 1. In rare occasions, what else could come after 5/7? 6. Those are your only options. That means when the chord changes, when you're trying to identify that next box, do and mi are going to be in that next box. And your only question is it do, mi, sol, which is a 1 chord, probably that's what it's going to be, or is it do, mi, la, where it's a 6 chord in whatever inversion, but do, mi, la would be a 6 chord, do, mi, sol is a 5 chord, or 1 chord.
So
The 6 chord is la, do, mi.
5/7 can only go to 6.
It usually goes to 1. It could possibly go to 6.
Okay.
But that's the only places it
So
can go.
they can't go to 3.
Nope.
I thought 3 was tonic though. Doesn't.
No, 3 is not tonic.
Oh, it's not.
So if you look at your chord map, the 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, the bottom is the tonic, the 1 is the tonic. The next level up, the 5 or the 7 substitute, is the dominant. Then you go up one more level and you have 2 with the 4 as a possible substitute. That is predominant. And then above that you have the 6 and then the 3. Those are, I call them color chords. They don't really have a name. You might call them tertiary chord. They're a third away from the root. They might be called tertiary or something like that. But they don't have a tonic or a dominant or predominant function. Those 3, the 3 and the 6. Yeah.
Sometimes I can't help but wonder when we're breaking stuff down like this, if Mozart thought exactly like we are doing right now, or if he thought about something like this and we have built on to what he thought about as time goes on.
I think this was all pretty well established in literature of his day.
Yeah.
So I think what we're describing, if we're talking about Bach was not exactly thinking this way we're describing. And it's a little hard to analyze Bach sometimes because of that. Because he was 50 or so years before Mozart. But by Mozart's time, all this stuff was, I mean, there are books about it, books from the time period where they're describing all the things I'm saying. We're pretty confident that Mozart was, I mean, he processed information differently than normal humans because he was a genius. But the processes he was using fit really nicely into everything we've been learning, which is why I picked him for this class.
Yeah, I was going to say he probably didn't think about it, but that's how.
It's the operations that he learned and he was using to make his music sound good to him.
And it's crazy that to me, I love it, but it's crazy to me that how much of an impact this music has had on people that we're still talking about it and studying it 200.
That is fascinating, but I want to keep
I know.
focused on this today to make sure everybody's ready for the test. Okay, bar 3 looks just like bar 1, right? You should notice things that repeat because you don't need to analyze them twice. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Find something to do with the wheel if you find another one. Okay, so 1. Now we go to bar 4. In bar 4, by the way, a repeating bar will also give you a hint where the next box starts, right? Something changed at the end of that repetition. So by seeing where the repetition happens, you can make a prediction of where the next bar is going to change to, or the next box is going to be drawn. So let's go on, and I see, as I said that, now I see that the next box is actually 2 bars long, the first bar of which matches bar 2. So I could probably put another line here and say this is 2 and 5, just like we did above, since it's still repeating. I think that's fair. 2 and 5, 7. 2, 6 and 5, 7. And then we can say back to 1 here. I'm not sure why I didn't already do that. I must have done this too fast. Well, these are exactly the same, right? Up until bar 5. Bars 2 and 3 are the same as bars.
Oh, I'm saying with the boxes specifically.
Oh,
Not what's actually.
okay. Let's go to bar 5. Bar 5 then. This 5/7 up here in bar 2 went to a 1. This 5/7 here also goes to a 1. And again, if you look at the left hand, it's super easy to see that because these notes right here are just outlined. This is called an Alberti bass system. Actually, I need another. Boy, I need another line here. I guess this is good because you're seeing how I find my own errors. The chord changes in the middle of this bar, and I saw that by looking at the left hand. So the left hand has C, E, G with an Alberti bass line. Do, sol, mi, sol, do, sol, mi, sol. That's called Alberti bass. And the do and the mi step down to T and re. So here we have do and mi. And at the end of the bar, we have T and re. So this is sol, ti, re. This is a 5 chord right here. And again, we can look at the left hand to verify. We guess from the left hand, or the right hand to verify. We can look at the left hand and see this is a 1 chord. Well, let's talk about the 1 chord first. Do, mi, sol right here. Clearly, the left hand is implying a 1 chord. We look to the right hand and we say, does the right hand support a 1 chord? There's a C. The first part is all C and neighbor tones. You can see a couple of non-chord tones, but C is the line that goes through those. And then we have an E. C and E fits in with C, E, G. So we've verified that it's a 1 chord. Now we go over here, we look at the left hand, and we see B, D, G. This would be a 5/6. I should put the 6 on there. If you miss an inversion, it's not a big deal, but try to get them if you can. And then we look at this hand and we say, what does the right hand support a 5/6, a 5 chord? G, B, D. It's a C sharp and a D. One of them is in a G, B, D chord and one of them isn't. So if you're already looking for a 5 chord, you can tell which one is the right one and which one's the non-chord tone. If you didn't make a guess by looking at the left hand first, you might be tempted to say this is the long tone and this is the short tone, so maybe this is the important one. But that's not what's happening here. G, B, D fits in with the D, and then this C sharp is very specifically what kind of non-chord tone? Not an escape tone. Look at the note before it, and there's a leap to the non-chord tone, and then a step back in the opposite direction to the chord tone. Appoggiatura. Chromatic appoggiatura. Chromatic descending appoggiatura, if you want to be really specific. Those are the kind of words that you should like kind of start getting used to, but they're not really part of this test. I want to see that you're getting the underlying structures right. That's what we're really looking for here. So 5/6. That 5/6 is going to continue. This line does not exist. The box should be here. I need to upgrade this. That's the box for the 5/6 chord. And then if we look over here, 5/6 goes all the way to here. Up here, we have a G, B, D. There's the D, neighbor tone, step up, step back. Lower chromatic neighbor, matching that note. And then a leap up to the F. What does that F do to our 5/6 analysis?
Make it wrong.
Modifies it, which is, what's the first inversion of a 5/7 chord? Third's still on the bottom. 6/5. 5/6/5 instead of 5/6. Correct. Everybody with me here so far? All right, we go to the next. After the 5 chord, what do we expect to be next? 1 chord. So now we're going to just kind of, if you don't know where the boxes are, which you won't on page 2, you have G, B, D. you're looking for a group of notes that looks like C, E, G. Before you even glance at it, you should have that in your mind. Then, when you look and you see them right here, it's easy to say C, E, G. You can see that group of notes and you know what's next. So you put a 1 chord. Look at the right hand to verify it, and we have the same structure again, but on a different chord. A leap down to a chromatic non-chord tone, step back up to the chord tone in this chord, and we're set. It's a 1 chord with a chromatic descending appoggiatura, just like we found in the last bar. Any questions up to this point? I think we got the first 2 lines done. I would not close this into the box there, because that should continue down here. I need to upgrade this file for next year. And the 1 chord continues on to the next line. Oh, maybe not though. Okay, let's look at the right hand and verify. C, E, G, we said this is a C chord, no problem. Now we look down here, it's still, the left hand's still playing C, E, G. We are still assuming it's a 1 chord. And then we look up here and we see a G, no problem, still in the C, E, G chord. We see a C natural up here at the top, obviously still in a C chord. And then a B flat. What does a B flat do to a C chord? Makes it not minor. It's still C, E major. E makes it major. E flat would make it minor. But a B flat, what does that do to it, Hannah? Not diminish. In order to be diminished, it would be C, E flat, G flat. You have to change the 3rd and 5th to make it diminished. C, E, G, B flat. What chord is that?
Oh, dominant C.
It's a dominant chord. C dominant. Why the hell would Mozart put a 1 dominant 7 chord here? First of all, can it be a 1 dominant 7? Because dominant has to be, and 5 has to be, yes. So we have a 1 chord, but it's dominant. We can't call it 1 dominant 7. So what do we call it? 5/7 of something else. So I would probably just go ahead and close this and put a new chord down here. This I would call 5/7 of something else. No matter what key you are in, if C is the 5 chord, what is the 1 chord? What triad has C at the top of it? C, F chord. F-A-C, C's at the top. Therefore, C is the 5 of F, and in the key that we're actually in, which is C, what's F? 4. This is 5/7 of 4. Does everybody understand that series? We found a chord that was a dominant chord. We couldn't call it 5, or we couldn't call it 1 dominant 7 because it's not 5. So we had to rename it as 5 of something else, and that was 5 of 4.
In reality, he probably did that somewhat just to add variation as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was for variation, and it was to go to the F chord. If you have 5/7 of F, 5/7 of 4, the next chord is always 4 before we even look at it. So once you find one of these dominant chords, it's like a gift from your analytical composer because you know what the next chord is. So here we have C7. That single B flat tells you that the next chord is going to be an F chord. Then you look at it, and this left hand is F-A-C, F6/4, and we would call it 4/6/4. I'll go ahead and put these up here where we can read them a little easier. I can. Is that a little better? It's probably better on the video. Okay, so we have 4/6/4. Well, I shouldn't have written it before I checked it, but the left hand is clearly an F chord. It's after a C7. It's got to be an F chord. But then I look at this hand to make sure, and I've got the B flat leaping to a G sharp, and then resolving up, chromatic appoggiatura descending, and then resolving up to a chord tone that's in the F chord, A. So now we're really confident this is an F chord. It's in a 6/4 inversion. You could actually note that this C running along here is kind of a pedal tone. And I think it continues on to the previous line also. That's what a pedal tone looks like. However, in this case, it also is in both of these chords. That happens once in a while too. But that bass note repeating all the way through there it's one of the things that composers try to do to make the music sound unified and connected. Question?
I was about to say, because don't you normally, whenever you're doing like, especially in the albertative bass method, you try and stay like in the same area-ish most of the time? So
Yes.
like, one chord's gonna be like C, E, G, and you stay there and you just move your two fingers and you keep
The way I try to describe it, I call that voice leading. That's what jazz piano players call it. So the idea is you put your arm in a place, and then if you're playing the C chord, you play it here. If you're playing the F chord, you try not to move your arm, you just move your fingers to get to whatever chord you need. And then you have like good voice leading. All the voices sound connected. If you instead, like I'm on a C chord, I'm on an F chord, and you're leaping around, there's no connection between the different voices, and it just sounds disjointed. Sometimes that's what you want.
Wouldn't you just call that like block chords then? When you don't leap and you just apply like the inversions? Isn't that
Block, you could call it that. Generally, when you say block chords, you're just talking about the chords being played rhythmically at the same time, which means they're not arpeggios or Alberti bass. Block chords would be just a chunk of a chord in some rhythm all together. But you're not hearing each note one at a time. You're hearing the full chord. That's a block chord. At least that's the way I use the term. Other people might use it differently. Okay, so we're on a 4 chord. Hope my boxes line up better now. FAC still continues here. FAC, C on the bottom. We have this descending chromatic appoggiatura resolving up to a chord tone. We have a couple of little connecting notes. This is a chord tone. And then that's another chord tone, FAC, that's a C. Then we come back down. What is that? Is that it's blowing up so much I can't tell. Can you see what that is?
A.
It's A and then B. Is that B flat?
Yeah, I think so.
I
E
can't see.
natural because it's
Well, it's a B, it's not an E.
I said B.
Did you?
I said natural.
It sounded like you said
B natural. Okay, so it looks like they're just telling you the B natural. Technically, you don't need that B natural because this bar line resets everything to the key signature anyway. Every bar line. So if I have a B flat here, if I had another B here, it would still be B flat, even if it's not marked. That's what flats do. Accidentals change you for the full bar, not just the note they're on. But when you hit this bar line, you reset everything to what the key signature said. So technically, you don't need a B natural there. However, it's helpful. If the player is playing fast and maybe reading it, they don't practice it, they're just sight reading it. Then I've got this B flat in my mind, and I go over here, I might still be thinking that B flat scale, or the B flat in my scale. So this is kind of what we would call a courtesy accidental. It's a reminder to the player that B flat is not really what's happening. It was just a decoration on this chord, and now we're back to the original key with the B natural. That's why that natural is there. So just a passing tone, it's just a regular diatonic passing tone with a reminder that this chromatic note is out now. Okay, C, B, A, G, F. That is straight down the scale underneath an F chord. F, A, C would be the chord. F, G, A, B, C is the C scale underneath the F chord, and that's the whole C scale going down from the fifth to the root of the 4 chord. So everything up here verifies that we are still in the F chord.